So to do introductions quickly, my name is Taylor Engstrom. I'm the partner marketing manager here at Modernize, and I'm joined by my friend Ryan.
Good to be here, Taylor. Yeah, I'm Ryan Shantz. I'm the founder and CEO of SumoQuote. I'm located up in Calgary, Canada. So there is still snow on the ground here, which is frustrating to no end for me, the winter that never ends. But yeah, it's great to be a part of the webinar today.
Awesome. Cool. And quickly, guys, before we get into the content, we just want to say, where we're coming from. Obviously, Ryan just mentioned he's from SumoQuote. Myself, I'm from Modernize. And really why we're putting this webinar on today. As Modernize, we are the #1 privately held lead generation company in 5 core trades: roofing, windows, HVAC, solar, and siding. And we've been in business roughly 15 years, and we work with hundreds of contractors over the years and hundreds of contractors now, from as small as 10 employees to 2 employees to as big as publicly traded companies with massive sales teams. So really brand is crucial to the contractors we work with, and really a lot of times we see as the advantage. So that's Modernize quickly about us. We'll get into more about that later, but just want to let you know where we're coming from.
Yeah, and SumoQuote, we're a company that focuses on brand and really the customer experience. How we want to help you is we want to help you stand out from your competition there. And we know that's tough. I come from the roofing industry, and I'll touch a bit more on that in a while. But in coming from the roofing industry, I mean, in our city of 1 million people here, there's probably about 1,000 roughly residential roofing contractors. So we're all about how do we help you differentiate yourself and give you some really good sales, marketing, and branding tools in the midst of that as well.
Terrific. And Modernize has just partnered with SumoQuote recently. Great company. We met them at a roofing show in Dallas, Texas, and we're really excited to really work on this partnership and bring this to you all. Whether you work with us or not, we hope this webinar will go a decent amount in convince you to consider us. So with that being said, real quick, you folks, I like to turn off my video to make sure that the content comes through your Zoom best quality. So Ryan and I are going to turn off our video here, and we'll see you at the Q&A. But yeah, get going here. Great. So first, to set the table, obviously we're here talking about brand. We're here talking about how your home service business can really re-up its marketing and really, win in these trying times and really at any time. So in terms of what has changed, right? If you've been in business a while, if you've been in business for a couple decades, maybe it's a family business and your father or your mother started it a while ago, the business landscape has changed. So in terms of what has changed from a marketing perspective, we would say the first one is that the ways you can quote unquote meet your customers, there's never been more than there is now, right? Gone are the days of canvassing is the only thing your business does in order to generate business. Gone are the days that most of your business comes from referral traffic from people you've serviced before who are happy and they referred them to another customer. Now they can meet you in a myriad of different ways, right? They can meet you because of an email you sent them. They can meet you because they saw you on Google Maps. You can meet them because they saw an ad of yours on Facebook or whatever other social network, right? The ways in which you interact with customers for the first time has never been this complex, and that's really changed the game in terms of how much brand matters. The second one is, and everyone knows this, is that customers really prefer digital experiences. We've seen this shake up a number of industries, and our data shows us that groceries and home improvement is actually the last frontier, that not all of these transactions are happening online. For example, travel. When was the last time you booked travel through a travel agent, right? Or you picked up the phone to book a trip? 90% of travel is booked online now. So internet as a primary source for homeowners to find home service pros is increasing 30 to 40% year over year, and it's growing. So even if it's 10% of the business you do now, or the projects you close now, it's growing exponentially, and it's only going to continue to grow. The third thing we would say is that customers have more expectations around transparency from the businesses they work with than ever before. So what does this mean? This means reviews are super important. When was the last time you purchased something online and you didn't read at least 2 or 3 reviews, right? Trusting a brand is one thing, trusting a product is another, and all of those things lead into the fact that you need other people like you to vouch for that business, to vouch for that service, right? Customers demand this. The second thing would be pricing, right? When's the last time you visited a homeowner, say you're a roofer, and you attempted to do a new roofing job for them? How many times do those customers not actually have a rough idea of price before you get into the quote, before you even get into the appointment, right? Price and being transparent about that is crucial to today's customer. The third thing is process. So appointment to quote to close, homeowners like to know what's happening. They like to know what's happening beforehand. So being super transparent about your process, whether it's the sales process or the actual project process, is crucial information that could make the difference between how your homeowners decide to do business with you or not. Ryan, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it. The digital experience side there. Yeah, to your point on that, how customers are just expecting something different now. Like, I can't remember the last time I was in a bank, right? Like, I can just do it all through my phone right now. So, if I get a check ever anymore, and typically it's being e-sent to me somehow, I just take a picture of that check and it automatically goes in. Yeah, every industry is changing right now, and so I feel like and I've been in the home services industry for a while here, and I feel like we've been a bit slower to respond, but it's coming on fast right now. And the companies that can adapt the fastest are going to have the greatest opportunity moving forward from here. So, yeah, I think you're nailing it there.
Absolutely. And folks, we wouldn't be remiss to say that obviously times have changed overall, but they've really changed with the advent of the COVID-19 crisis. And we're not going to get too much into that, but I know Ryan has a great thing to share on how businesses are pivoting to address this new normal successfully.
Yeah, I mean, right now, everyone is trying to figure out how do we do this. And, Taylor already touched on, you have to have a plan. I think a lot of it is making sure you communicate that plan to the homeowner ahead of time. So what I mean is you can create a marketing page and just, lay out the steps. We're going to, as a part of our proactive leadership of managing COVID-19, here's our steps 1, 2, 3, 4 of all the things that our company is doing to make sure that we're keeping you safe and we're keeping ourselves and our employees safe. So if you're coming in showing them that you've got a plan and that you know how to handle it, it's on paper in front of them, you're doing all the things to give them confidence that they can move forward with the job. If you aren't doing those things, suddenly no plan means you're leaving a lot of question marks and you're letting them fill in that space either with their worries or doubts or fears or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things you can do. And certainly I can walk you through some of that as we continue to go here as well.
Excellent. A great point, and probably a big reason why you are on this webinar is what really hasn't changed. The importance of brand has definitely not changed. The importance of brand is almost more relevant than it's ever been just because there's so much noise out there. There's so much noise on the internet. There's so much noise, in homeowners' minds before you even visited their house. Brand is important. And if you don't already have a sterling brand, that's fine. There's tons of ways you can upgrade that brand today. And we're going to talk about some of that. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention when we talk about brand, what do we really mean? Brand is made up of a couple of things. Design is obviously the first thing people think about, right? It's the colors you use. It's how you project yourself visually online, to the uniforms of your salespeople, to the taglines around your brand. If it's you're been in business X amount of years and that's part of how you say your name to people when you first run appointments, that's part of your brand, right? Your reputation is part of your brand. How good are the word of mouth referrals that you're getting? Are people loving the work you do, or is it okay and like a value spend of money, right? Customer support, customer experience is part of brand. How people feel when they interact with you is indeed part of their memory of you and thus your brand. Your policies and the quality of work. Do you stand behind your quality of work? If they're not 100% satisfied, are you refunding them their money? Are you doing the project over again? I'm not suggesting you do any of these as policies, but having these policies and having a certain degree of quality of work that you always guarantee is part of your brand. And lastly, how long you've been in business. I mentioned this. If it's a family business that's been around for 50 years, that's terrific. And that can be part of your brand. But I would say don't be intimidated if it's not. If you've been doing this for 2 years, if you just started, but you have an insanely qualified background based on working directly for a manufacturer or working for another roofer for several years, right? All of this stuff is important, and all of this stuff is important for you to define for your own business.
And really what I'll throw in there as well, Taylor, is on the brand side, think about the most powerful brands you can think about there, right? Whether it's McDonald's or Starbucks, Nike, Apple, there's all of these brands, and there's a consistency between all of those, right? Their design matches the reputation, matches the customer experience and how something works, and the quality and the consistency of things. So, there's a common thread that's woven through there. And that's the same type of thing you want to focus on in your business. You want to tell them that you're going to give them a great product, and you want them to believe that, and you want to have testimonials, and you want to look the part and how you dress. But if you show up and your truck is filthy or rusty, or you show up late, all of these things are contributing to a brand experience, and there's got to be a consistency within that. And part of the some of the stuff that I'll touch on here is that brand experience that you're doing on the sales side. But yeah, Taylor is certainly giving us a great list on here. I think now it's just thinking about that through the lens of how we feel that as consumers with other brands out there, just so that we're thinking about that context as we look at our own business.
Yeah, amazing, Ryan. I couldn't agree more. I think brand experience is the sentence to remember there, right? It's an end-to-end experience from when they first hear your name to when the sales rep reaches their home and they're able to have a discussion, right? It's an experience throughout, and that's always something you should be cognizant of.
Totally. So yeah, I mean, what I want to talk about here to get us going is this concept of design and why this matters. And Taylor's been already queuing us up for all of this, but really it's the consistency that he just mentioned, right? And because it's that whole concept of perception is reality. And so in what Taylor's got on the screen here, there's a bottle of 7-Up on the left, and it's the usual consumers report tasting the usual lemon lime flavor, right? And the bottle on the right with the exact same soda in it, consumers report a more lemony taste, and all they did was tint the bottle. But this impact of brand and how much it matters, an example like this, it's such a small, easy one, and yet it starts to make sense why people perceive things in a certain way, and people are willing to pay more when they can see that value. So if you can do things that cause them to perceive that value, they will be willing to pay more for your service if you can show that in your branding and have a consistency throughout with that. Taylor, anything else you want to chip in there, or should I just keep pounding away on things?
I think, I think you're totally right on all points. I think in terms of the last point about, they'll pay you more for inherent value. I would just echo on the point that perception is reality, right? The perception that the lemon is in more of the 7-Up just because of the color, I think is totally right. So there's a sort of level of almost like, psychology and almost like hypnosis when you're talking about brand and when you're talking about marketing, whether it's the name of your company to your tagline to, we'll talk about this later on, but like the discussions your sales reps are having, all of it is an opportunity to bring home and bolster the brand experience and the brand message that you've created, right? So I totally agree on those points. Yeah.
Awesome. And just so that people know, I don't want people to think that this is hard. It just has to be a bit intentional. And we'll walk you through a lot of very easy things you can do for your business. And my focus is obviously on the sales side. So yeah, I mean, my story, right now, I'm the founder of SumoQuote. We founded this business a couple of years ago. We're running it. It's fun. It's been growing like crazy. And we keep getting a lot of just positive feedback on how it's changing businesses out there. But before that, for years, I ran sales for a roofing exteriors company in our city here. So I'm one of the owners there still. My partners run the business. But in the last 5 years that I was running sales with them, my team helped sell over $100 million in roofing exterior sales. So there was certainly there was certainly, you know, a lot of testing that we put into all of the sales psychology stuff that we'll walk you through with this. And before that, I owned a denim business called Good Society, randomly enough. And if I'm to try and, you know, weave a common thread between those three, I would say in being in the denim business, fashion, I don't think there's an industry more brand sensitive than fashion, right? You would take a $2 t-shirt, you throw a logo on it, it's suddenly worth $50.
Yeah.
And so we basically took that concept and started applying it with our roofing business way more. We saw a huge increase in sales with that, and we built some technology to try and make that faster and easier to do with it for our business there. And that technology worked really well, and that's what we've now converted into SumoQuote. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun being in these industries and really focusing on branding and marketing and sales throughout these. So I'm going to start jumping into some of these first 8 points here. So I'll handle the first 5, and then Taylor's going to take over from there. Actually, sorry, good we have the slide in here, Taylor. I'd mentioned before, this doesn't need to be difficult to do. And so what I want to do to start is I'm going to share a sample quote with you. Taylor, if you stop sharing for a second, and I'll just take over. Taylor, you got my screen there?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So here's a sample quote, and Epic Roofing, that's the company I'm an owner of. So there's a number of intentional things we've done here, right? So we've put the client's house on the cover to really personalize it and make it feel like this is about them, this quote, right? We go through, we've got an introduction page, and we lay out the process, and we're making it easy for them to understand. And so again, this doesn't need to be hard to do, but it's just intentional about how you go through it. Right now, the page that we're, you know, stitching in next is this COVID-19 and how we're managing it safely as a roofing company. Again, we want to show them that we've got a plan and make them feel comfortable with the whole process. You know, from there, we can stitch in photos, give them more of an understanding of what's going on in their own home, and give them really valuable information for potential issues that we see as we do our work or how we're going to solve them. And now, you know, we jump into the actual quote part. And in this case, I'm doing a good, better, best quote. So I list my good option and the price and my better. And here, I'm not just telling, you know, giving them the product upgrades, but you can see that I'm talking about the advantages. And I'm telling them why this should matter to them as a consumer. And then I'm going to, you know, jump through and have the best option. On our authorization page, we continue to give them a couple of upgrade options if they want. And then we've got e-signing to make it really convenient for them to sign off. And again, all of this is, we're doing this to show them that we're a more professional company and we're giving them a more professional experience and the options that they want. So when they're signing off on a page like this, well, then it makes sense that you've got product options right after that, right? So they can pick colors. And then I've stitched in a final marketing page here, just talking about how qualified our business is and talking about how happy clients have been with us. So we want to make sure we reinforce the fact to them at this point that they're making a good decision and we can execute on the promises, the brand promises that we're making here, right? And of course, we've got our terms and conditions. So that's the style of quote that I'm going to walk you through and some of the philosophy behind why something like this is so effective. So Taylor, I'm going to send it back your way to continue on with our slides there.
Yeah, and if I could, just quickly, I think this awesome seeing such a powerful technology in SumoQuote, but I think it really goes back to the example of like the dirty truck that shows up at your door, right? If you're a homeowner and instead of a dirty truck of someone who's, you know, maybe done a million jobs that day, or you're their first job in the last couple of weeks, right? If you see a clean truck and the sales rep walks up and they check out your home and then they open up a SumoQuote like the one we just saw and they walk through it, you know, that's definitely going to bolster the brand experience. And as a customer, you know, what you think of that company by just having that, right? So Ryan walked you through an awesome feature functionality of it, but really just keep that topic in mind about the brand experience and how the customer feels when you're able to walk them through something like that.
Well, from a customer perspective, you know, if I was in their shoes, what I would think is If this is how they treat their own property, how are they going to treat mine? If they're treating their own property with disrespect and it's dirty and dented and you can tell they're not looking after it, well, why would I expect that they're going to look after my property that isn't theirs then? I'm expecting a similar type of experience, right? It all blends together on that. So great, let's keep going through this. So point number one that we've got today is simplicity sells. If it's hard to understand, it's hard to buy. And this is something that goes right to behavioral economics. Behavioral economics talks about mental fatigue. And some contractors think if I fill this quote full of jargon and full of things that are confusing, I'm making the client feel like they're inferior and they have to trust me. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble. When I think it's actually the opposite. If you can make it easy for them to understand, you're removing blocks and you're making it easier for them to buy from you. I don't like to scare somebody with a whole bunch of things that they don't understand. I want to educate them. I want to make it easy for them to understand. But if I scare them, that can slow down the process because it makes them think, oh, shoot, I don't understand any of this. I better do more research, or I have to figure this out before I start making decisions on it, right? And if we flip to our next slide here, when we're talking about an actual quote or sales presentation, we want to make it very easy. And so when I look at these two, I don't even know what the screen on the left is really selling. Like they've got everything on there. And it's, I don't know where they want me to click. I don't know where they want me to go. It's really confusing and difficult when I go in there. Whereas when I look at the screenshot on the right from eBay, it's very clean, it's very visual, it's very easy for me to go through. So really quickly, I know top down, I can search for whatever I want. And then they try and make it a bit more easier for me by giving me some common categories, right? And each step is intentional and it's well thought through, but it's not burdensome and exhausting, and it's not breaking my brain to look at it. It makes me want to explore it as opposed to click away from it type of thing. And that's the same type of thing that everything you do. And again, I'm going to focus on the sales presentation part of it, but you can have your quotes look very different to make it very visual. You know, the example that this makes me think of, about 3 years ago, one of my sales guys that I was running at the time came into my office and said, you know, hey, Ryan, you'll love this story. I met with this homeowner. You know, it was a bit of a stretch. They were leaning towards this other company, but they said they'd give me, you know, 10 minutes to talk with them. And 5 minutes into talking with them, they said, actually, you know what? I'm going to go with your company. I mean, look at your quote. It's so much more detailed. But he said the interesting part was he could see the competitor's quote sitting on the table right there in front of him. And he actually thought the competitor's quote was far more detailed. But the competitor's quote, it was obviously built in Word or something. It was just a bunch of text, and it was full of industry jargon and everything else. Now, he understood it, but the homeowner, you imagine reading that, they get, you know, a quarter of the way through and their brain is hurting and they just feel like they don't understand what's going on or how to make a decision. And so when they see something like what we present, and it's very visual and there's photos and we take them, you know, a few bullet points, it is so much easier for them to understand what's going on and then trust that. So, you know, we won that job. That was a $43,000 Hardy job, siding job with James Hardy. And so, yeah, it's just a consistency from homeowners in what they tell us and how it is to be able to buy with that type of an experience. Now, the next one I'll talk about here is, you know, don't show them, tell them, right? And there's this whole thing. And the text that I put on the screen here, this is a situation that I'm talking to a client about, right? So what I could say is, hey, there's a dead spot located behind the chimney on the lower section of your roof. So that's an area that doesn't have a slope on it and allows water to get trapped on the roof, right? And I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but it takes, you know, if they can figure it out, man, that's difficult to look at that, right? And so to put it in a slightly different context for you, you know, another example of this would be the words on the screen in front of you now, right? Like, we all know these words and our brain is starting to piece together what it is and what's going on. But when we flip to the next slide, you get it instantly, right? Like, there is no hard work. There's no mental fatigue that's going on. You just I mean, if anything, when you see it, I mean, my mouth starts to salivate. Like, it's a totally different physiological, emotional reaction when you see it versus going through the words, right? What there's research that's been done out there that says you can comprehend something communicated visually 10 times faster than something communicated through text. The other thing is not just comprehend it 10 times faster, but retain it 10 times faster. Your retention on understanding it is 10 times longer that you retain it for when it's shown to you visually. So if we go to the next slide, we're talking about that first example again. Here's all of that words, and it's there, but it's confusing and we're trying to understand it. So then if we see that visually and we show it to the homeowner like this, now it makes sense. Oh, a dead spot behind my chimney where water can pool. Got it. Right. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, so how are you going to fix it? Oh, you're going to frame in a slight slope in behind that chimney so that water is correctly directed off the roof, right? Like now you don't even have to, you can still put the notes on the right to explain it to somebody, but you don't even have to go to that point because it just makes sense to them visually and they understand it exponentially faster. So anytime you can visually show something, it goes it's far easier and you get way more trust from the client if you can do it visually.
Yeah, Ryan, it's not even close. It seems even for the seasoned professional, it would be harder for you to type all this stuff out as opposed to show it visually. So I think the lesson here is super powerful.
Well, again, like this could be for service work, right? If the homeowner is like, oh, okay, something's broken, and you go in there and you inspect it, whether you're HVAC or electrical or roofing or whatever it is, you find the issue, you take a picture. And when you're fixing it, you stop halfway through and take a picture. And then at the end, you take one more picture. And you can create a powerful experience by showing those to the client at the end of the job as well. And I'll touch on that a bit later as well. So this is an interesting one. Donald Miller is awesome. If you guys have a chance to check out his company Story Brand or his book Building a Story Brand, he was an author, but now he focuses on marketing messages and how to communicate to people. And so his whole thing is about, how do you design and craft your words and create a story for them. It's about making the client the hero. And so what he talks about as we dive into this a bit more here, he talks about, let's go to the next slide here, Taylor. And he talks about how, okay, let's back it up a step and we'll talk about stories. And he says there's basically 6 different types of storylines out there, period. Every book, every movie, everything is based around one of these 6 types of storylines. And so that's why you get a story like Star Wars. That's basically the same story as Tommy Boy, right? If you remember the old Chris Farley classic. So you've got a character, it doesn't matter if it's Luke Skywalker or Chris Farley, who, has a problem. And it doesn't matter, actually, let me back up a step. With Luke Skywalker, they've always got this flaw, this thing they can't overcome as well, right? So Luke Skywalker, orphan, doesn't understand the powers of the Force, lost and confused. Chris Farley, goofball, right? Like, has a problem. Doesn't matter if it's the Empire or, all of a sudden they're running this company that they have no understanding or experience to do. And then they meet a guy. Doesn't matter if it's Yoda or David Spade, right? And you can see how it goes through this. Now, the big takeaway for you as a contractor and figuring out how this applies to branding in your company is you need to understand the character, the first person that they're talking about there, the hero of the story. That is the homeowner. You are not the hero of the story. You are the guide. You're the one that understands what's going on and corrects it for them. And so when you are building your quote, if you think back to that one I showed you, I gave very, very little details on the company itself. Everything was about the homeowner and what mattered to them. Photos of their house so that they could understand their own home, right? How to manage this safely so that they could feel comfortable having people on their property. It's all these things that matter to them. The stories about them. So now the one thing that you want to think about as you're trying to figure out how to, create that story for them in your quote. And it doesn't need to be difficult, but it's, what is their problem? That's step number 2. As a contractor, we automatically think, oh, the problem is, their electrical's fried, or they've got a leak on the roof, or their house needs painting. But their problem might not be their problem. They may be like, yeah, well, duh, of course, I know that, but my problem is I don't know how to pay for it. My problem is my daughter's getting married in 2 weeks and I want it done before the wedding. My problem is, and so you've got, I love my rose bushes and I don't want my rose bushes to get damaged with all this work going on. And so what you need to do then is you need to have empathy for that, and you need to demonstrate authority that you can do that. And what you do is, in your quote, if it's the rose bushes matter to them, put a photo of the rose bushes in there. Mention it on your introduction. Show them that you understand what matters to them. And if you speak to the thing that matters to them most, you're going to win that work.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in here as well, Ryan, I think this doesn't just apply to the sales process, but it applies to, before they even decide to run an appointment with you. And I'm looking at that calls them to action, this slide up here on the top right. And at Modernize, obviously, we're a lead generation company, and online marketing is our focus. But it's like, if you're a contractor out there and you're trying to figure out online marketing by yourself, what's your CTA that calls the hero to action? What's your call to action? Is it, it's time to upgrade those windows because a cold winter is coming, or, it's time to finally get around to that roof because, you want to keep your family safe? I mean, what is it? Do you want to paint the character that is the homeowner as someone who's always ahead of the curve and makes their house the best looking one in the neighborhood, or the most functional and safe for their family? Or, what is that story? What is that call to action to the homeowner to do the job in the first place? So awesome resource here from Ryan. Obviously, we're going to share this deck with you all after the recording, and just, so you have it as a resource. But the story brand stuff is really great and applies to a lot of things in life. So thanks for the share, Ryan. And just keep in mind, a lot of this stuff applies to the whole process of interacting with homeowners.
Totally. Thanks, man. I'm going to speed up just a little bit because I want to be sensitive to our time here as well. So throwing to the client sweet spot. We've touched on this a little bit, but if we go to the next slide here, what we want to do, so this slide is from, I love this slide. It's from Ted Williams' book, The Science of Hitting. So Ted Williams, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, right? So he wrote this in the 1960s. So he knew that there were 77 spaces a baseball could go through the strike zone. And he knew his batting average through every single space that the baseball could go through there, right? Like, incredibly analytical, way ahead of his time with this stuff. In this analogy, think of yourself not as the hitter, think of yourself as the pitcher. And if you're giving the exact same quote or the exact same sales presentation to every single client, you are not throwing it to their sweet spot at all. You're just hucking the ball out there. You don't know if it's a ball or a strike, if it's low and away, right? Like, you're just hucking it out there and hoping that it works. And if you just make a few little tweaks, like I said, put a photo in of the rose bushes. If they've mentioned it 2 or 3 times as you've been talking with them, put the photo in there and comment on it in your introduction, and instantly you are starting to hone in on their sweet spot to make it easy for them to hit that ball. So just be intentional, listen to what they're talking about. The beautiful thing about being a contractor, like Starbucks, Nike, McDonald's, they're all hoping they hit what matters to you as a client. And they're trying to market to tell you that this should matter to you as a client, right? But as a contractor, we've got this unbelievable advantage that we actually get to talk to each person and listen to them and find out what matters to them. And most of the time, most contractors do nothing with that information, which is incredible. You have this unbelievable opportunity. So find out a little bit and then just tune in your sales presentation to that, and you will start closing more deals. You've got a great opportunity with how you're set up in the industry you're in. We'll jump to our last one here for me, my number 5, and then I'm going to hand it over to Taylor. And we've commented a little bit on this already, but this whole concept of just because you're better than terrible doesn't make you good. And so myself as a roofing contractor, what's the tendency? I compare myself to other roofing contractors and the experience that they get from other contractors. And as long as I'm better than everybody else, I think, hey, great, I'm doing a good job. But homeowners' expectations are changing so fast these days, as Taylor spoke about earlier, right? It's that banking example. My expectation with my bank is that I actually never need to go in there because I can do it all online and on my phone and stuff. I've got 3 boys, 5 and under. The whole idea of going into a grocery store, it is awful. That's terrible for me, right? Like trying to drag 3 boys, 5 and under around a grocery store for an hour. I just order all the groceries online, right? And then I pull up outside the building, they walk it out, put it in my vehicle for me, and I drive away, and it costs me $3. That's the experience I want. I'd pay $20. It doesn't matter, right? Like this is where it's not about price. It's about the experience and how you are going to give them a pain-free experience with what you're doing. And you want to show them that every step of the way, including in the sales process. And SumoQuote is great at helping you do that. So, but I'll hand it off from here over to Taylor, and he's got a lot of great points to continue walking us through with this.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think this is an awesome transitional slide because I think one way you can create new value and prove that you're better than the average contractor out there is the fact that every touch point you use, every touch point you interact with a homeowner is an opportunity to create new value. It's an opportunity to brand yourself as well. And I think two key lessons here. I think the first is that when you're branding yourself and when you're trying to come up with a brand for your contracting company, the first thing is try to be unique, try to be individual. We talked about that at the top of this webinar. Is it, how many years you've been in business? Is it how innovative you are? Is it the fact you stand behind your work? Is it the fact that you only do metal roofs? I'm not sure what it is for your business, but make sure it stands out and it's unique and individual. The second thing is, and we'll talk about this touch points in a second, but be consistent throughout. The brand that they interact with on the website should be the same brand that they see if they, visited your office. It's the same brand that they should see, when the sales rep visits your house. In terms of branding opportunities, there's several touch points in which you can be unique and be individual and be consistent. I included some examples here. It's what your sales rep says to greet the homeowner, right? I'm from XYZ contracting company. We've been in business, 50 years and we stand behind every job we do. And we have a 99% satisfaction rate. That's a bit of a mouthful for a sales rep to say, but that's an opportunity to brand yourself. Call scripts, same thing. If you have a call center, if you have a sales team, if you have one person dedicated to calling, how do they greet the homeowner on the phone? How do they close the call? How do they, handle any concerns or hesitations on the call? All of that can be part of your brand. Email templates is the same deal. What you include in the email, how you design the email, much like how you would design your quote in a SumoQuote, it's all the same, right? It's an additional touch point to add value. Collateral for your in-home appointment. The pieces of paper you're dropping off at the home, the SumoQuote you send in an email after you run the appointment. All of these are examples of touch points. And lastly, ad copy, right? So at Modernize, we're a lead generation company, so we producing hundreds of thousands of ads, hopefully to generate homeowners for you as a business every month. And that's an opportunity to stand out as well online in terms of what you say as your tagline, what you use as copy for advertisements. So the seventh point I would say is be proactive about your online reputation, right? It's no longer you're ahead of the game if you're online. It's now table stakes. It's now something you need. So make sure wherever you are online, it's consistent with your brand and it gives you opportunities to stand out. So we generate 200,000 plus homeowner requests on modernize.com, on Modernize properties every month. And some of the data that we have is that these are the 3 top choices that homeowners trust when they're reviewing your business from third parties. The first is Google, whether it's Google My Business or your location on Google Maps. Homeowners are looking at that, and homeowners are reviewing the information. They're reviewing, what you say about your company. They're reviewing all these things. The second is obviously Better Business Bureau. If you're in the Midwest, this is huge for your homeowners. This is actually #1 in the Midwest, according to our data. The third would be Yelp, and we have a little screenshot of Yelp here on the right. Champion windows and home exteriors of Austin, where Modernize is based. But look at these examples, right? They show pictures of the job. They show Obviously, they have their reviews up here as part of Yelp, but all this stuff is opportunities to brand yourself and to make it consistent. The last thing I would say is just apply the same rules you see in other industries, right? E-commerce has sort of championed the idea of reviews, but that doesn't mean you can't be innovative in the process as well. Just more examples here. Again, your brand is everywhere, whether you're on top of it or not. So this is your rallying cry. This is your call to action to really take control of this stuff. If you haven't redesigned your website in a while, now's maybe the time to consult with a web agency. All these things are important in the minds of your homeowners, and they're very important according to our data. So, eighth and final point. What I want to say here is the fact that Ryan and I gave you some great keys, I think, to not only up-level your brand, but up-level your marketing efforts. And I think if you do it well, if you have a consistent brand experience, if the customer feels good working with you, and you build a sense of trust from what you say to them when you first meet them, to when you run them through the sales process, to when you send them a quote after the job, and the quote reiterates everything your sales rep said, or whatever online advertisement they saw. If you do all of this stuff right, it will pay you back, right? So showing you on the screen, this is the Modernize, what we call our post-lead experience. So if you're a homeowner, one of the 200,000 we generate every month, you come through, you submit one of our forms, and we match you with a contractor. We highlighted here Woodbridge Home Exteriors. Brands like this, when they're able to do all the things we said, we'll see on the next slide here, they're able to use this positive feedback, these reputation they build from a great brand experience, and then continue to market that. So we show here the importance of ratings and reviews. On Modernize, we have our own review system. We also show Google at the 4.3 out of 5, which is a great rating. We talk about the use of discounts. This is more tactical, but can still apply to brands because it makes you seem, relevant. It makes you seem aware of the times that are going on right now. So, if you're offering a discount for COVID-19 and those who have, gone through a challenging time, that makes your brand seem alive and not someone who's aware of what's going on. More information always helps you stand out. So, how long you've been in business, the kind of manufacturers you work with, all the stuff that you can create as an additional section on your SumoQuote, if you use that, is relevant to your brand. Lifespan is part of your brand, right? 31 years in business for Woodbridge specifically. Again, this doesn't have to be a big part of your brand, but if it is a strength of yours, go ahead and use it. Guys, the lesson here is that if you do all 8 of these keys, and if you have a consistent brand experience throughout, you make the customer the hero, right? You customize your quote, you customize your client experience to your client. You'll be paid back, and what you're paid back with is something you can continue to market with.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more with all that stuff he said. There's got to be, Taylor's nailed the things that it's not just a single point, and there's a large digital field out there, and to be aware of what's going on out there and to be intentional about managing that. So yeah, that was it. That was a good analysis. Thanks for covering all those, Taylor.
Yeah, of course, Ryan. Thank you. And I keep going back to the dirty truck analogy. Have a clean truck, not only in front of the house, but on Google, on your website, on the call center agent interactions that they have with their homeowners. Be clean and be consistent throughout. So with that, again, we want to make sure these webinars have a ton of value for you guys. Please continue to stay as we close out here, as we'll talk about our incentive. But just quickly, as a reminder, Modernize is the #1 privately held home lead generation company for residential home pros in HVAC, roofing, windows, solar, and siding. Really, our goal is to connect your sales team or yourself, if you're the business owner, with more homeowners and help you stay focused on what's important. Closing more deals, engaging with more homeowners, and more money in your pocket, right? One of the ways we stand out is we help you collaborate with our dedicated account managers to make sure you get the most out of your lead program. Most lead gen companies don't do this. So we get a lot of great feedback about our account management team, and we're definitely able to help you out. And with that, I'll hand it over to my partner here, Ryan, at SumoQuote, and just talk a bit more about his business.
Yeah, well, you know what? Rather than talking about it, why don't I show people and I walk people through this? So if I can share my screen here again, Taylor. Perfect, thank you. So anybody that was maybe joining us late here, really what we're talking about from a brand experience again, and I'll go quickly through this, is here's an example of what your quote should look like, right? This is something that connects with the client, makes it really easy for them to understand. It's really visual so that they can take it in piece by piece. And it makes sense as a natural flow to a presentation and how you're giving them the pieces that they want and need in the order that they want and need them there, right? So to show you how we can actually build that, by the way, are there any users of Company Cam out there? If so, throw it in the comments. Love to be able to see that as well. So, but Company Cam is a great app for taking and managing photos. So I'm going to start my new project here actually by linking it to my photos in Company Cam. And so I'm going to grab that and I'm going to create a new project in SumoQuote here. And now I'm going to start building my report. So all these pages should look familiar, right? A title page, an introduction, inspection. And if you want to include an introduction page, you just toggle it on. And if you don't want to on this, you toggle it off. So you're just toggling pages on and off as you go through. So on my title page here, you know, all this stuff's been pre-filled in, which is fast and easy from the project. But I'm going to jump into my Company Cam account and toggle through my photos there for this project and just grab the one I want, and it'll automatically go onto my cover. So SumoQuote and Company Cam together are a really slick, powerful solution because it's so fast and easy to do this stuff. Introduction page, I'm going to grab a template up here. I'll use my retail template. And in this case, I'll just change the client's name and go from there, right? So I could often, you know, add a line or a paragraph just to customize it like we've been talking about and make it a bit more personal here. Inspection photos, I can go in here and grab them out of Company Cam again, you know, select a photo and then, you know, make notes beside it here as well, right? So we will double tarp these rose bushes. I know they aren't rose bushes, but right, if this is the conversation, what matters to the client, and then I just hit edit on here and I can zoom in on this and I can mark this up as well. So the homeowner knows we're looking at all the same stuff together. So again, to customize this stuff, you should be able to do this in seconds or minutes. Like this is all stuff that you should have a plan to be able to do really fast, right? So here I've got line items already built. I can just put in my quantity. If I go to my templates, I've got lots of templates that I've built in here. And here's a good, better, best one that I've already built. And so typically I would just tweak my quantities and be done there. And the authorization page, same thing. And the fun part for me is these custom pages, because this is where you can really, after listening to the client and figuring out what matters to them, here's where you can come in and say, okay, financing matters to them. Let's add that page. Or it's a big storm area after a hailstorm for roofing. Let's click and ask for referrals, right? So when you click on something and then you just drag and drop it to where you want to layer it in your presentation. And so often it's often similar type things that you're putting in here, whether it's certifications and testimonials, talking about the safety of your program, why the product's better. There's lots of consistent messages so that once you build a few marketing pages for yourself, it's really fast and easy for you then to build something that feels very custom to the client and is speaking to exactly what matters to them at that time, right? So as I go through this, you can see like that was 2 minutes maybe, like, and I've got something completely custom for what matters to them in the job and what's going on. And really the only thing I didn't do was tweak my quantities on there. But other than that, that's legitimately how long it should take to build a totally custom professional quote that stands out from the competition and anybody else that you're quoting against. So this is the type of thing, our closing rate increased by 64% in the first couple of years of switching to this, which was, it increased our annual sales by millions of dollars. Like it was no small thing, the impact this had on our sales and our revenues. And in a time of social distancing, when everybody's needing to stay further and further away, you need to rely on your quote to stand out all the more so and be the voice of your salesperson when you may not be able to be right there with them. So I'll leave it at that, although we do have a bit of time here for questions and answers. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand it back over to Taylor. And any questions that people have out there right now, we would be happy to take those for you.
All right.
Maybe we did such a good job of the presentation, there was very few questions there, Taylor.
I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened. Yeah, guys, use the chat, use a Q&A. Feel free to type in any questions on the content. Again, reminder, we will be sending this to you, not only the recording, but the deck itself. Obviously, SumoQuote live demo won't be in the deck, but it's something great to share. I think these lessons are really applicable for every one of you out there. So, all right, if we don't have too many questions, I guess an easy one is always pricing. And in terms of Modernize, again, lead gen, we price based on cost per lead. So based on your trade, where you're coming from, based on your trade and where you're coming from, our prices vary from, as cheap as $30 to, around $50, depending on the level of intent from the homeowner, right? So definitely hit me up about that. We'll give you our contact information here shortly. And again, our partner SumoQuote has been a really exciting partnership. I'm really glad to put this webinar on. Ryan, why don't you tell them about the initial packages for SumoQuote?
Yeah, we're pricing for SumoQuote. Most contractors tend to fall in our middle tier, which gives them up to 5 users on their account. And it's got e-signing built into it. So you can create that digital sales experience right away with that. And we've got a lot of other stuff like invoicing and a sales dashboard and callback calendar and stuff. But our pricing for that tier is $149 a month. And typically what I say is, if we can help you close 1 extra deal in a year, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in, that should cover your cost of SumoQuote for an entire year if we can help you close 1 extra deal. And like I said before, with our company, it was millions of dollars that our revenues increased by. So, certainly from a price side, we've probably heard quite a bit that our price is, I don't want to say too low, but people tend not to have issues with the price at all. So I'll say that. I do see one question there from Russ, and he's just asking about, and I think he's referring to SumoQuote here in the presentation, is it effective with one-call closing? Yeah, Russ, for sure. So SumoQuote works great on an iPad. On that first cover image where you can click on it, I pulled it out of Company Cam, but if you hit that image button, if you're on an iPad, it'll just say, do you want to pull from your photo library or do you want to take a picture? And you just snap a picture with your iPad, it dumps straight into SumoQuote. And really, like I showed you, you're literally just toggling on and off pages and grabbing quick templates. So, you get efficient on it, and, it's a couple of minutes, few minutes to build something totally custom for the client, and you can get them signed and close that deal right there when you're with them.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Cool. Thanks everyone for the questions. Again, in terms of, we told you to stay till the end for the attendee bonus. We're not going to let anyone leave one of our great webinars without this happening. So Modernize, we're a lead gen company. Obviously, these are challenging times for a lot of people, but one thing that you should continue to do throughout this period is to get yourself out there, right? To market, to make sure you don't come out of this thing flat-footed, right? So every marketing program you do is going to affect your business in 30 days, if not sooner, right? So how do you prepare your sales folks to have appointments from when everyone's, not working from their bedroom, right? So Modernize, we're offering 15% off. Really excited about this partnership with SumoQuote. Happy to offer that to any SumoQuote current customers, but any new customers of Modernize, reach out to us about the 15% off discount for this webinar. And Ryan, why don't you tell them about your great discount over there?
Yeah, we've got 25% off for the first 3 months for anybody that's been attending the webinar here. So you can feel free to reach out to us directly. Our general inbox is hello@sumoquote.com, but my contact details are there as well. So feel free to reach out to me directly. Happy to set up a demo with myself or somebody from our team here. And yeah, we'd love to show you how SumoQuote could work with your workflow, your sales process, and help make it a bit easier to shift to more digital, online, virtual sales right now for your business.
Yeah, I love it. And on this slide here, that's my direct email there, tangstrom@modernize.com. Would love to get you in touch with some of our sales folks and show you, the amount of homeowners we're producing in your area and what that pipeline could look like if you work with Modernize. So yeah, here's our direct information here. Again, look out for an email from both of us with all this information, with the recorded webinar and the recorded and the PDF of the deck. So yeah, it's been my pleasure hosting this with Ryan. Thanks everyone for coming out, and yeah, we'll see you on email. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.